A new clash on Capitol Hill before last week's State of the Union address. House Speaker John Boehner called President Obama's economic message un-American. And now Speaker Boehner is defending his words.
The president doubled down on the same failed policies that have not worked. Matter of fact, they've made the economy worse. Higher taxes, more spending, more regulation. And what I'm talking about here is the politics of dividing America, the politics of envy. This is not the American way. And you know, if the president won't work with us to help create jobs, I'm sure the American people will elect someone who will.
So what do Democratic leaders think about Speaker Boehner's class warfare accusations? Congressman Javier Becerra is vice chair of the House Democratic Caucus. He joins us. Good evening, sir.
Greta, good to be with you.
All right, what do you make of the president's remarks and others who say that the rich do not pay their fair share? Are you talking about some of the rich or all of the rich?
Well, I think the president made it very clear that there are a lot of folks who aren't contributing as much as other Americans are, and that we should all be ready to pull together to get the economy going again. And so I believe that Speaker Boehner has missed the mark when he talks about the president's remarks. It certainly doesn't look like a good sign for having a chance to reach common ground on any number of important things, including the payroll tax cut for 160 million American workers. But we'll see. I hope the speaker changes his tune a bit, especially since he got most of his facts wrong. Taxes have gone down under President Obama. The president has helped hire 3 million new workers in America, so things are different from what he said.
I think, though, that when he was talking about the class warfare, that what he was speaking largely to are the suggestions that that the rich don't pay their fair share. And I'm sort of curious, getting back to my question, whether the thinking is that it's all the rich who aren't paying their fair share, or some are not paying their fair share of the rich.
Oh, no, clearly a lot of Americans, for example, keep their money in the U.S. They don't send it abroad to Swiss bank accounts. They put their money back into American businesses. They hire more workers. Those folks are doing their fair share. It's the folks who are looking for every way out, whether it's legal or not, to try to avoid putting in their fair share of taxes. And what we have found is that in America over the last...
Okay, because I really have a question about that, because I guess it goes back to the tax code then, because you have those who are paying according to the tax code, and maybe it's thought by some they don't pay enough, but they're following the tax code. There are tax loopholes that allow them to pay perhaps less tax on something. Now, the Democratic Party had the House, the Senate, and the White House for the first 2 years of the Obama administration, and no effort was made to reform the tax code so that it could in any way sort of become, as you might suggest, fair. And so now, all of a sudden, we hear this fair share business. So where were you on reforming the tax code?
Greta, we were there. You have your facts a little wrong, because the difficulty in getting things through the Congress, as you recall, is the fact that Republicans in the Senate used the filibuster, the procedural maneuver, to prohibit anything from passing unless it had a supermajority. So while Democrats had a majority in the Senate, they did not have that supermajority with enough support there to get all those measures through. And tax reform is one of those very difficult things to try to do unless you have bipartisan support.
Well, I guess that's where I sort of throw it back at you. I'm a little disenchanted. I think many Americans are with the excuse on Capitol Hill that it's just hard. It's the other party that didn't do it. And when someone has enormous amount of influence, has the greatest number in a particular House, and has the White House, and has the leadership, that you might expect that to sort of to utilize that leadership to seek the bipartisan to make things go right. And we're just going to keep going around and around and around in a circle until we have leadership emerge that can fix these problems.
Yeah, you're describing it very well. Let's put it this way. The president has, for the last 2 or 3 years, proposed that we stop giving tax subsidies to oil companies that are making tens of billions of dollars in profit every year. We haven't been able to pass that. Why? Because Republicans in the Senate have blocked it. But there have been efforts to do some reforms. Wholesale reform is tough. But we could certainly go after those areas where we know there's abuse. Over $1 trillion, you probably know this, Greta, over $1 trillion a year is spent through the tax code, most of it to special interest groups that have been able to lobby to get these tax breaks for themselves that don't go to all Americans. So we can do a number of things if we tackled some of these tax loopholes, these earmarks. The Bowles-Simpson Commission called them tax loopholes, and we can go after those.
Congressman, thank you very much for joining us, and I wish that everyone had adopted the Simpson Bowl, but there's a lot of resistance, and certainly that from a lot of people not to accept it. It's sad that it wasn't. Congressman, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Coming up. Donald Trump, he tells you his deciding factor as to whether he jumps into the race for president or not. Donald Trump goes on the record.